Hellfire and the Fall of Empire, a solo campaign by Jim Webster, suitable for use with the entire Websterverse line of games. Hellfire, generic 1 to 300 SF Wargames rules, Hell and Fateful Decisions, maybe Hell and Uncivil Disorder. We are in the middle of a civil war in our playthrough. Hell and Microcosm, from the trenches to the stars. He's got a whole library, man. This guy is a one-man wargame machine. If you can, Hellfire campaigns, look, there's all kinds of good stuff. If you can't find something you don't like in his oeuvre, then maybe you are in the wrong hobby. Our little campaign that we've been running using Hellfire, the Fall of Empire, needs no introduction. Welcome to the Hippopopolitans. This is the Decapolis, 10 cities, little kingdom, natural borders, should be well protected, surrounded by hostile, implacable tribes who are trying to carve off a slice of our kingdom, or maybe, maybe they just want to be bribed to go away. We just keep paying the Dane Geld. We're never rid of the Danes. Wouldn't you know it? I should have marked down where all my battles were fought with these little battle symbols. I did the first one and I forgot to do it. It would be interesting to count up and see how many battles we've generated using this campaign system. I haven't been playing them out on the tabletop because I don't have the right kind of figures for it. But you might, and you might have a good time doing that. Oh, let's talk about the geopolitical situation. The Usurper. We've been fighting a civil war for the last 3 years, and I have to walk you through a couple things I've been kind of doing wrong. Mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. Right now, we have managed, the King Wargamius III is in his third or fourth year of rule, and he has pushed the Usurper. He's captured the Usurper. He's sent him off into exile. And he's pushed the forces all the way back. He's reclaimed his throne over here in Hippos. He's moved the seat of power back to Hippos. That's also where the aerodrome is. And the only two cities left are Scythopolis and Pella. So we have to march in and retake those. We'll get to that in a little bit. Before we do, let's find out what else is going to happen here in the year 2954, as I said. So this is the 11th year of the campaign. Before we get into the events of the year, I did want to mention that, we've been playing this for quite a few episodes. One of the longer running campaigns we've done here on the channel, up there with, it's probably gone on just about as long as the Sneedville campaign, maybe as long as the Chainmail campaign, probably not quite as long as the, what do you call it? Not nearly as long as the D&D campaign. That's up to like 55 episodes, with more coming next week. Maybe up there with the space game. What was the space game we did? Traveler. Thank you. I appreciate you guys down on the chat. So let's zoom in here and take a look at some of my notes. As I said, 11th year of the campaign. We've probably produced somewhere around 12 to 15 battles that we could have gamed out. In this year, we're going to see no Tillians until 2956. But the popular front returns. Now, we smacked them around pretty good in 2951. D6 years of peace. They've been licking their wounds, and now they are looking to get revenge. One of the commenters here in the last week said, hey, what's the win conditions or the terminal conditions for your campaign? And we've talked about this a little bit, but I thought it might be worth looking at one more time in a little bit more detail. Jim doesn't have any real stellar what the campaign ends. He knows how most of these campaigns end. You just kind of lose, not quite as motivated, and you skip a session, then you skip another one, and then a couple months go by and you think, hey, whatever happened to that campaign we were doing? It just kind of peters out, and that's fine. You get a dozen good battles, and man, 12 sessions, you're twice the length of an RPG campaign, at least according to the data that we're not allowed to see, because it would be embarrassing for the RPG industry. But as I said, in this, I flipped the last page of my book for. I should be flipping to the last page of Jim's book. Frequent commenter. Make sure you read the comments. You like and subscribe, he said ironically, but not seriously, kind of half joking behind the Gen X irony. So here we go. In conclusion, and he says, look, I'm not too definitive about what forces look like, and I'm not too definitive about the year. If you need some ideas, you can roll percentile dice every year, and on 1%, something happens. Sorry, guys. There is a 1% chance that something happens. For the first 20 years, you roll on this table. As I said, we're in the 11th year. So we have a 1% chance that there's a 33% chance the Empire returns. And he's got a couple little checklists here for what that means. But much more likely, there's either a Starmancer raid, and that's kind of like big pirates, or a trade mission. And so we can kind of take a look at this. The Starmancer is a spaceship or several ships land and disgorge their crews to loot. Oh, the Vikings, right? So the Starmancers are basically Vikings, and they land a bunch of companies. The ship doesn't take part. And then we have a trade mission that comes from worlds you've dealt with. And basically, this is reestablishing contact. So this is the Empire has fallen, and you're not the only like fringe kingdom that's trying to hold things together. This is how Jim abstracts out the idea that maybe somebody's doing better than you. They've managed to consolidate power. They've got a safe enough time that they can fund the trade expeditions where they go looking around at the other kingdoms and say, hey, you guys want to trade? We got stuff, you got stuff. Let's get together and make a profit. So a couple of dice rolls here for that. The local warlord here is a little bit different. He's basically a star raider, but there's a good chance that he offers you money to become a pirate base. Or he could just raid you, in which case now, in addition to our 6 barbarian tribes, we've got these roving Vikings coming. But it's also possible that, if you control at least 5, I'll give you an example here. If you control 5 of the Decapolis cities, he recognizes you as a governor. He says, hey, give me 5% of your income a year as tax. I'll leave 2 medium ships to control piracy. And, then your mercantile cities can start to grow. So this is basically where you become like a satrap of this starfaring empire. And things kind of go back to where they are. And that's probably a pretty good end condition for your campaign. The empire itself could return. Whatever was going on in the Kaisan, that, the empire starts to lose its power. And then maybe an Octavian takes the throne and is like, no, I'm going to yoink back all that stuff. All those guys that thought they were independent. No. So they're going to decolonize. That would be an obvious end of the campaign if that's what you want. And then a new empire arrives. Is kind of the same thing, right? A rival empire. So the Western Roman Empire fell, and you're kind of on the border between the Eastern and Western. And so now the Eastern Constantinople Empire rises and comes in and says, hey, remember how you were part of those guys? Now you're part of us. Give us 10% of your loot. And again, right, they may also put a new national government in place. But, whoever controls the most cities of Decapolis, they say you're in charge. And that's kind of, I don't know if you could call it a win condition. This is like a really historical vibe to it, You never really win. You just kind of keep civilization trundling along for another 4 years. Or you just make things worse for another 4 years. And things just get, but things happen and they get better and they get worse and things don't ever really end. They just, the flowers go, and where have all the soldiers gone? Where have all the, and so on. Sunrise, sunset, the cycle continues. It's the circle of life, as they said in that movie, with the song, the Lord of the Rings. So where are we at? We got to figure out what happens in 2954. And something will happen. I can feel it. So the first thing we do, let's just check, right? If I roll a 001, 17. Okay. Nothing happens. Nothing ever happens. We're going to beat that joke into the ground. But we got a whole bunch of D6s to roll. Hippos, does it shrink? There's normally a 1 in 6 chance. But remember, last year, the Loyalists retook Hippos from the Usurper's forces. So because there was fighting going on, there is now a 2 in 6 chance. On a 1 or a 2, it goes by. Yeah, people are like, look, I'm sick of living out here in the boonies with all these rednecks. I am moving back to the core worlds, and I'm done. So, yep. And that's going to affect our finances. We'll take a look at those in a minute. I have to roll 3 times for Gadara, Pella, and Philly. 1, looking for 1s, 2, and Philly. Nope. So they're all good. Those people are comfortable. Scythopolis shrinks by another 1. Oh, that's going to be a real problem for the usurpers. Well, not the remnants of the Kanathan Empire, I guess you could call them. Dion is finding Kanatha will shrink on a 1 or a 2, and it does not. So then we have Rafana, which is a 5, Gerasa, and Damascus. So no's across the board. The only 2 cities that shrink are Hippos and Scythopolis. It'll change our finances a little bit. So I've been keeping track in a couple of places. Hippos shrinks to 10. When it gets to 6, it stops. Scythopolis shrinks to 7. And that will be an issue. So why don't we, before we check to see if the governor dies, if the barbarians show up, why don't we go ahead and take a look here? Oh, by the way, we used to have to roll to see if the imperial units left. but the Loyalists trashed them. They backed the wrong horse. They backed the Knathans, backed the wrong horse. Huh? Hippos? My Latin bros know what I'm talking about. So I thought this is what the finances were going to look like. But as I said, Hippos is going to reduce to 10. And that means our total population falls to 72, which means we're only going to be bringing in 144 kilocredits. After we spend 128 on the military, we're left with 16 kilocredits surplus. So now over here, we started the year off with 139, but we get to go up by 16 because it's 144. So our military is 128. Now that's what it was to start the year. It gets worse. Okay, the bleeding hasn't stopped. The financial hemorrhaging is still a problem. So if we go through all that, what we will find is that our year's budget is going to be 155 kilocredits. 139 was left over. We add 16 to that and we get to 155.5. But I'm going to buy 4 units of tube artillery. And to do that, we turn to the rule book where we've got a nice little shopping list here, equipment list. And as you can see, if you want to buy tube artillery, it costs 1,600 credits just for raising them. And then it's 500 credits per month. That means it's 5,000 per year to run tube artillery. And I didn't have any of that in my Loyalist forces. I got a lot of stuff in those forces. I've got a counter battery. I've got field medical team with 3 companies. I've got a engineer battalion with 4 companies. I've got support recovery battalion. So I can fight on 3 different fronts. Each of these companies will support a fight. Okay, so the tube artillery is what I'm talking about. So that's going to cost me 2,000 for the year, right? So next year when we do this, if I don't lose any of these units, it's going to cost me 134.5. And remember that right now I'm only bringing in 144. So I'm still under my budget. I'm still going to be adding to my reserves. I'm not deficit spending yet. Right. And then so you just add them all up. The other thing I'm adding is 2 more battalions of regular infantry. Each of those battalions has 3 companies of leg infantry, and they have a company of medium armor. That's going to set me back 55.50 for the year. I almost want to make it 55.60 just because, you guys with the tinfoil hats, you know what the 555s mean. It ain't good. But we'll go with it. And, hey, this is great. We can actually blame anything bad that happens on that number because it's a bad number. Anyway, the point is it's going to cost me $6,400 to set up the tube artillery and then another $20 for the year to pay those guys their salary. Then for those 2 battalions of infantry, it's going to cost me $10,800. So that leaves me with a surplus on the year of 120.3. This is, wait a minute. I forgot about the loss of income because my population went down. I'm down to 118 surplus. And I went back and I looked and my surplus was up pushing 250. So this Civil War has been really expensive. That's on the side of the Loyalists. Then we need to look at the finances for the Usurpers. He only has 2. Oh my goodness, this is even worse. Because remember, Sidopolis got whacked. Ha ha ha. Which means they're only going to have 14 population this year. Oh, there it is, 14. Which means they're only bringing in 28 kilocredits. And why is that such a problem? Well, let's take a look. That, by the way, their strategy is going to be recruit troops and defend Pella. In the last episode, I thought I screwed up the militia situation. I don't think I did in retrospect. These guys, the rebels had a bunch of Imperial forces left over, and so they only had like 6,000 credits left. This time around, I went ahead and spent, I think maybe we leave this as is. All right, I think we just have to give up something. Maybe our battalion of infantry. Let me back up a step. The original plan was to get a cut engineer company, right? So that costs 3,000. Oh, maybe this will work. Let's double check those numbers there, okay? The engineer company, just the one to help defend Pella. They got to dig the ditches, right? Engineers, they cost 1,500 to set up, and then another 500. So that's another 5,000. 6,500 on the year just for the one group of them. Did I get that right? Why does that seem off to me? Oh, yeah, that's right. It's actually going to be, since there's only the one company, it's going to be 1,500 for the gear. So this actually is 6,500, which we just can't afford. Because if we want to get a battalion with 4 companies of infantry, that's going to set us back 18,600. One unit of artillery to kind of help out, that's 6. So we don't have the 6,500. That's way too expensive. All we can afford is 4 companies of infantry, and that's even going to take us up to 25,200. And so they will be left with 25,200. There you go. They will be left with 4,800, and I need to fix this too. It's actually 28 kilo credits, and as I said, this is going to be 25.2, leaving them with, no, it's not even 48, is it? At 2,800, they're only going to be at 2,800 left. See, so that's not a whole lot, but they may be able to. The good news here is they may be able to recruit some militia, because the militia works in much the same way. I keep closing my book like a dope. Home defense militia. Good news is they're cheap. I can get a company for 1,500 on the year, plus another 50, and so that means I can get one company. I think maybe we'll wind up spending 1,500 on one company of militia, and they can be kind of a rump defense. That's 1,550, which takes them down to 12050. Is that right? That's what's left in the bank. 1,250. Why don't I zoom out, because I notice I keep getting this off the camera. So the point is, we're gonna have one just like token force, probably, like the Volksrung. What are the Volkssturm? Would the old men and the boys wearing paper uniforms, holding off the forces at Scythopolis, and it's gonna force us to actually commit troops, and that I think may wind up being important. Our overall strategy here, absent the neighbors getting a little frothy, is going to be to hit both of these cities at the same time. Now, if things are getting really crazy out here, we may just wind up taking the Scythopolis, which will bleed Pella dry. I think this is going to be the last year of the Canathan Regency. It would have been nice if we could have, I don't know, maybe we should have just held the Usurper hostage, but it's too late for that. I'm not going to worry about that. We're not really doing a narrative campaign. Elements of narrativism, but largely a campaign in its own right. So the big question now is, does the governor die? And here's why I have another massive mea culpa. Governor death, look at that. 1 in 6. Wait, where did I get that from? I've been rolling 1 in 20. Well, this is why we go back and reread the rules. Once there's been a disputed succession, roll a d10 every year. And on a 1, the current governor died, a replacement enters play. Roll a d6. On a 1 or a 2, there's a disputed succession and a usurper enters play. So I think, wait a minute, this disputed, I should have been rolling 1 to 10 every year. And then once that guy dies, let's see. And then so what happens is, if you're rolling a d6 for the health of the governor and he survives 5 rolls, switch to a d10. So the longer he survives, the more secure his power, the less likely he is to accidentally imbibe iocane powder. He won't be poisoned. He won't be betrayed by someone willing to sell him out to the next highest bidder. There's also additional rules for the higher your taxes, the less people like you. The political science 101. I don't know why modern politicians have such a hard time with this. This is why no one likes you, modern politicians. So I think maybe what we get away with is we roll a d10, and then for 6 rolls, so I have a 1 in 6 here, but I think maybe it's a 1 in 10. As I said, I was rolling a d20, which was wrong. So this is going to be the first of 6 years. After 6 years, it goes back up to the d20. So here we go. On a 1, Wargamius III is no more. No mas. Nope, we got a 1, so he's okay. He survives. And I'll make a note of that, because next year will be the 2nd. And after 6 years, if we get up to year 17, then we'll start rolling the d20 again. He can sleep safely at night. He doesn't have to worry so much about having his Praetorians watching him sleep, which is kind of creepy. So as I said, should have been a 1 in 10 during the Civil War, but what you gonna do? On the other side of the issue, we have these barbarians. How many tribes are gonna get frothy? Just 1. Now, I am 5 minutes in from the last edit, so I ain't faking that, bro. Question is, who's gonna do what? And if I roll what did I say? The Tillians, the 11th year, no Tillians. So if I roll a 1, 2, 3, 4, if I roll a 5, nobody wants a piece of this. Holy cow! This is the best thing that could actually. It's the worst thing that could have happened because it's kind of boring, to be honest with you. We can actually probably run through 2954. So the Tillians take the year off. And we can just finish off the year right here. It's very simple because I'm going to be hitting both of these guys with everything I've got. And if we compare the forces, I think given our spy networks telling us that there's just the one little militia unit in Scythopolis, I think we're just going to wind up taking that. One thing to be aware of is that when it comes time to take a city, a force moves to the nearest city, the city will just surrender on a 1. So there's a 10% chance that those guys just surrender, and they don't, because I already rolled the 1 on the d6, which is fine. That's okay. That also means that we do have one small. So look, how's our power? What is our situation going to look like? Well, let's zoom in. I've got one militia company. And if I send one ECM, one field medical team, and one battalion, that's 3 companies and supported by a company of armor, then that means I'm going to be rolling with my 3 companies that are all going to be at +2. And I'm going to roll a black die for the local militia. They're going to be at -2. We're going to compare the highest numbers. And yeah, so that's a 6 versus a -1. So it's just going to be a cakewalk. What that does mean is that we've got 3 battalions of regular infantry that we can hit them with, and we can bring our squadron of aircraft. So again, it's going to be 3 battalions versus the 1 battalion. Or alternatively, you can look at it this way. We are going to have a total of 9 companies of infantry against 4 companies of infantry. There they are. There's our 4. There's our 9. We've got 1 unit of artillery. It's actually, you know what? I said 2 companies. This is actually only 1 company. And that means that if I bring, remember I have 4 companies of tube artillery. We're going to make a big impressive showing of force here. We've got engineer battalion on the side of the Loyalists. We've got aircraft on the side of the Loyalists. We've got so many pluses. These are professionals. These guys are, they're actually, this might be a good little tune-up for these guys. I think because we hired a couple of noobs and these guys are new, that will kind of cancel out. But we've got a 2-to-1 ratio here, and we've got air supremacy, we've got artillery supremacy, we've got engineering supremacy, we've got everything going in our favor here. So we do the same thing. We say, I'm just going to subtract 1 from each of these, although they did have a little bit of time. So maybe I'm just going to add 2 to each of these. And essentially what I'm looking for is, can I get any one of these, just straight rolls, -2s, anytime we line up? That's going to be casualties that we have to deal with one way or the other. So probably smart to zoom out on this one. And if we line them up, so if we line them up north to south, we get a total of 3 6s, and there's no 6s over here. So just here's our high dice. We're using the Scrud one more time. I could use Hex Encounter, but it's a cakewalk, guys. This is pretty clearly not going to be much of an issue. We're going to wind up retaking Scythopolis. Now, I will say this. For the next year, and maybe I shouldn't have done that this time. Sometimes I say, because we had such a massive battle, I'm not going to make any income from the cities that were fought. But I'm already penalizing myself on does the city shrink? Do people get disgusted and walk away? So I think I'm going to go ahead and take the money next year from these 2 cities, but we'll double the chances that things slow. And honestly, doubling the chances that these cities are reduced has a multiplicative effect or a duplicative effect over the year. I'm not just losing the income for the 1 year. I'm losing that 1 income every year for the following rest of the time. Now, as far as casualties go, we could probably argue that, again, I've got field medical teams, so that's just going to be kind of wrapped into the general cost of running those armies. And we've now, really the point here is that we've brought the Civil War to a conclusion. We've brought these guys back in. Now, it could flare up again. If Wargamius dies, if we roll that D10 and we get the 1, then there is again that chance that a Usurper shows up on the scene. So we may have to fight another civil war, but ultimately, what we've shown over the last several episodes is that these civil wars are just another form of conflict that can make things interesting. If we had had a full on, and we got very lucky that the Popular Front didn't launch a full on invasion, they have an option of sending in a peer force and just, which can really take advantage of the Civil War. We missed that. We were very fortunate from a keeping things together. I think we're kind of unfortunate from a channel perspective. I think the more stuff you got going on, the more chaos is going on, I think the more interesting this is. But we're kind of exploring the game as it is. You got to take what the dice give you. This is one of the common recurring themes here that you won't hear in most channels, but you will hear it here. So we have no tribes, and I can make a few more notes, and when we come back, we will take a look at the year 2955. From a personal perspective, I think I'm gonna miss doing stuff like this. These little folders, these little posters are fun, man. I know Civil Wars are not great, but from a thematic perspective, getting to do this is the kind of what Donald Featherstone called what did he call it? Oh, domestic wargaming. All the little, designing uniforms and talking trash at each other and all that little stuff. That's the kind of world building that I think is it's a hoot. And I'm glad you guys are here to share it. We're creating a new empire here out in the Decapolis, and things are looking up for us. Who knows? Maybe if things are boring next year, we may actually launch an incursion or a punitive raid. The Grey Horde, they were kind of taking a little bit of advantage of us. Boy, I had this on my wrong finger the whole time. Forgive me, guys, for those of you that are disconcerted by the accoutrements. We can launch a raid on the Grey Horde. It's completely outside the scope of these rules, but I mean, who's going to stop us? You know what I'm saying? And maybe this is one of those situations where if things are slow in our kingdom, we can go launch a punitive raid, crush one of these forces of the Grey Horde, and buy ourselves D6 years of peace for down the line as our treasure chest, our war chest begins to deplete. We may also think next year about trying to develop hover tanks, right? Right now, we've got the technological advantage, but only in the realm of small arms and, energy weapons. If we can research energy tanks, that may be a way to kind of bleed off some more and give ourselves a slight edge, an additional slight edge in the tabletop battles. But, it'll bleed off more of our money. So if we do get hit by a couple of major incursions at the same time, we could be in some real trouble. Whether or not we will, you'll find out in our next episode, which will happen next week. Till then, I'm praying for you.